Hey, howdy, hello, and welcome to the show. Welcome to this episode of the Redlight series, the series where we look at Steam's most lowly and controversially rated games to see if they're really as bad as the internet says they are. I'm your host for the day, Smirk. Today's game is called Prison Girl, which was released on January 22nd of 2021 and is currently priced as a $5 game, and is the first release by a developer calling themselves MA Game. Currently, there are 14 reviews in total, with 2 of those reviews being positive and the other 12 as negative. In Prison Girl, you play as a girl named May who was framed to kill, which I can assume instead they intended it to say for murder. Your goal is to get by in your day-to-day life while plotting your escape, probably to wherever Andy and Red now spend their retirement. The game takes you through different parts of the prison, starting with your cell while stopping by the showers, the administration sector, the yard, the cafeteria, and ultimately back to your cell. Each of these zones has a chore. Some affect certain aspects of your status, such as hygiene or food and water, while some chores give you money for items and gifts. And no, I don't know why health shows up twice in the stats list. Instead of walking through the entire prison, you actually speak to an NPC that runs that area, in which you have the options of exchanging a short 1 to 2 lines of dialogue with them, or else you can offer them a gift, do business with them, or ask to leave the area to go on to the next. Eventually you get back to your cell where you can Groundhog Day it to the beginning of the next loop. The controls in this game require some special mentioning. Some things can be explained by opening up the in-game help menu, which is actually just the control scheme. One thing to note is that the mouse cursor is hidden by default. You need your mouse in order to hit the back button in the top left to take you to the main menu, or to open up your inventory in the task list, which is your quest keeper. Funnily enough, you probably won't know how to show your mouse cursor to hit the help menu. I found it accidentally by hitting the escape button. Some other controls worth mentioning are that numbers 1 and 2 both handcuff or shackle May, what seems like for mostly no reason other than your own self-satisfaction. If you shackle May, she starts hopping around. Hold shift to run and she hops faster. This is a weird thing to include for no functionality, but to each their own, I guess. In addition, dialogue options are not selectable with anything else other than the mouse wheel, for what I found. You can't click on them or use WASD or the arrow keys, so if you don't have a scroll wheel, I don't actually think you can select dialogue options in this game. Lastly, this game does have a gameplay loop. Essentially, you want to get money to exchange for gifts so you can hit 100 friendship points with various people in the prison. This is required to advance parts of the game, so the time you'll spend in this game is mostly composed of this loop. You get $500, buy 5 gifts, give those 5 gifts to the person indicated in your quest list, and carry on to the next task. One more thing. After your first loop, which is essentially a tutorial, you're given a cell key to leave your cell at night before you sleep. This next part is actually a stealth-driven section of the game, as you'll sneak past guards to find garbage cans for a chance to retrieve materials to assist you through the game. If you get caught, you get put in this strange BDSM chamber. Here you have the option to take various poses that actually don't seem to do anything at all since there's no action animation. Whenever you've had enough of this section, you leave by pressing the back button in the top left and then you'll be dropped back into your cell with 0 health. The first health, not the second. When your first health is under 75 points, you're routed to the infirmary to heal, which will replace some parts of your daily chores. That's about everything we need for the foundation, so let's move into what I liked about the game. Prison Girl made the idea of prison very unattractive to me. This game could be featured on an episode of Beyond Scared Straight to keep today's youth on a path to righteousness. I no longer need to imagine what mistreatment and unfulfillment is like because this game explicitly conveyed those feelings to me. After 3.5 hours of feeling belittled by this game, I started wondering if this was actually a critical take on the poor treatment that occurs in prisons, especially since you can see that this game takes place in America, a nation that's been harshly criticized for failing to bring water to a rack of oil, stovetop, or hygiene. That's probably the most redeeming factor this game has, so let's continue to the ungood. So to be upfront, this game has a lot of issues. To go through a few of them, starting with some minor inconveniences and building up to the greater of the evils, I'll lead with the story. In 3.5 hours, the game fails to introduce anybody by name, including your own character. I wouldn't even have known to call my character May if it wasn't for the Steam store page. In dialogue boxes, your character is just notated as I. By the end of my playtime, there was no indication that I was serving any type of overarching plot. The store page doesn't even say what prison it is, it just says X prison, yet there's an emblem in the game that says it's Nathan Edward Moore Penitentiary. Something else I ran into quite often was the lack of translations. I don't like to pick on games that can't accurately capture English, but I do have a problem when translations are just outright missing. This happens multiple times throughout the game, most noticeably when you talk to the warden. If you click on any of these 3 options here, the warden just gives you money. I feel like everyone can read the room and guess what might be happening, but the game doesn't convey it properly because you just get $600 for choosing all 3 options with nothing more but some text. Well, the joke's on him because my character hasn't showered in 20 days. Next up on the spit list is the game's sounds. I actually can count all the game's sounds that I experienced on 2 hands. It's 10. There's 10 sound effects that I encountered in my 3.5-hour playthrough, and no background music. It'd be one thing if the sounds were something of quality, but no, they couldn't even give me that. Just listen to this eating sound, for example. Or what the morning wash-up sounds like. Some sounds are balanced or captured poorly, and some others suffer from effortless loops. The sound I undoubtedly heard the most was the sweeping sound, which I guess was fine. But after a little while, I started imagining other, more impactful sound effects to fill in the blanks. We're starting to get to the most dastardly of these Dickens, which leads us right up to the graphics. The game oddly has no shadows in it until you get to the yard, so some things just look off. There's no graphic settings available in this game aside from resolution, so what you see is what you get. The graphics are also poorly applied in conjunction with the camera. There's many areas where the camera rotation breaks the graphics in a few different ways. For example, in some instances the camera clips through the object, revealing the world behind it, and in another, it causes parts of the environment to distort or disappear. Now, the reason this is so deep into this list is because if you manipulate the camera correctly, or incorrectly, depending on what you were originally going for, you can actually make the clothes of your character and other characters disappear, revealing actual genitalia, which definitely should not be happening. The game was tagged by the community with sexual content and nudity, but actual nudity needs to be marked with an adult-only tag to filter out underage users. I mean, everyone was born on January 1st of 1990 anyway, but this is a symptom of irresponsibility from the developer. And now it's time for the most rascally of all the rapscallions, the gameplay loop. If for some reason my earlier description in the introduction made the gameplay loop sound attractive, I am so very sorry because it is everything but. This might be better explained in the frame of numbers and time. So there are tasks in this game where you have to hit 100 friendship points with the people who run each section of the prison. Whether you have to do it to all 7 NPCs, I don't know, but you have to do it for at least 3. It takes, at peak efficiency, 2 minutes to get through each day loop by doing the money-earning chore and skipping all the others. You can only get 5 items at a time since the shop only stocks a max of 5 per loop. Divide the amount of gifts needed, 100, by the max you can get per run, 5, and you get 20, which is the number of times you have to complete the loop to get 100 gifts. Multiply that by 2, which is the number of minutes it takes to complete a loop at its fastest, and you get 40. That means to complete one of these quests, it takes 40 minutes of this mind-numbing, uneventful, debilitating task, and there is absolutely no fulfillment once you've done it. You know what I got at the end of the first one of these tasks? I got $1. I then got the next quest, where I had to do the same thing for someone else. I did it one more time, only to receive another $1, and then another quest asking me to do the same thing for a third time. This game straight up asked me to have absolutely no fun for at least 2 hours. If you had to do this task for all 7 NPCs I encountered, you would have to spend more than 4.5 hours just doing this loop. Someone might think that I should mix in the stealth gameplay element to get materials to help speed up this process, but that slows down the efficiency by a whole lot for just about no equivocal gain. If you happen to get caught, you have to spend 3 loops restoring your health, losing out on 6 whole minutes. If you haven't quite caught on, I absolutely despise this gameplay loop. It needs to be shortened by a long shot to even be bearable. I can't even believe I allowed myself to complete this quest twice. This game could be provided to actual prison inmates if they wanted to discourage computer use time if all they did was allow them to play Prison Girl. For some one breath honorable mentions before we move on to the end. The game's camera, if adjusted, will bug out and require an application restart. The requirement of a scroll wheel for dialogue selection is incredibly archaic. I'll never understand why May isn't in an orange jumpsuit or why she showers in her dress. It's stunning how the guards are only able to see things that are directly in front of them, never above or below. Everyone aside from the night guards and May herself are stiffer than a box of bricks. Food, drink, or health too never went down even though I didn't have May eat or drink for dozens of days. Okay, that's about it. Let's move on to the verdict. Instead of highlighting Prison Girl's strengths, we will be moving directly into this game's weaknesses. To consider Prison Girl's weaknesses, first, the game fails to convey the story that's introduced on the store Steam page. Next, parts of the game aren't fully translated, leaving a few dialogue experiences in this game unknown to the player. Thirdly, this game's sound direction is incredibly lacking, with only 10 different sound effects and no music being experienced in 3.5 hours. After that, the graphics naturally suffer from distortion, clippings, and even in certain arrangements causes all clothes and hair to be removed from the characters, revealing adult content on a non-age restricted game. Lastly, the gameplay loop is insultingly long, coming in with at least 40 minutes of trivial work for next to no gain, satisfaction, or even just a positive experience. With these things considered, I have to say that I do not recommend Prison Girl. And now, I'd like to introduce you to our new segment, Better Than Flat Out 3? And the answer is...
Hell no!
I've spent enough time talking about this game, but before I go, thanks for watching. Don't forget to do things like the video, comment your thoughts on the game or the review, follow the social media links in the description below, and subscribe if you couldn't shirk the smirk. If you're feeling generous, hit the bell and maybe I'll see you next week.
Looks like it's sweeping time!